over the years, Enough is Enough has pioneered initiatives that have shaped Nigeria's civic landscape. Their platform and campaigns, including Office of the Citizens, which, of course, reinforces the idea that every Nigerian is the most powerful office holder in a democracy. Ideas like also the hashtag Open NAS, that's an advocacy for transparency in the National Assembly's budget and activities. Initiatives like Shine Your Eye, which enables citizens to contact elected representatives and track their performance. And of course, the hashtag MyLGA, an initiative that strengthens grassroots governance and citizen participation at the local government level. Through these initiatives, Enough is Enough has mobilized millions of Nigerians, empowering them with information and tools to demand accountability. Their work has extended beyond digital advocacy to town hall meetings, radio, TV programs, street protests, and policy engagements that have, of course, amplified citizens' voices. Citizens are also losing hope in governance. Misinformation is rising, and political apathy threatens democratic participation. The rapid digital transformation has also brought both opportunities and, of course, complexities, with artificial intelligence and social media playing significant roles in shaping public discourse. Now, despite these challenges, EIE remains steadfast in its mission, and their focus in the coming years is to, of course, build a thriving community of educated, engaged, and young Nigerians who understand the rights and the responsibilities. Now, EIE believes that the power to drive change lies in an informed citizenry. And of course, joining me to shed more light on all the amazing work that Enough is Enough is doing is Executive Director, Enough is Enough Nigeria, Opeyemi Adamolekun. She's joined me via Zoom tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, and congratulations on EIE turning 15.
Thank you very much.
I am sure that the most common question that EIE has gotten in this period over your media rounds, because I saw that there was a couple of media rounds, just, to shed more light on this milestone, would be that how effective are advocacies in this country? Because it just seems like, it seems like we are just talking and talking and talking. Nothing seems to be changing. But, I am sure that EIE has a completely different, opinion about advocacies and how effective they are within Nigeria. So maybe you shed more light on that, and, we can then take on the conversation from there.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Well, you're right, and I think citizens have a right to be a bit jaded, because ultimately their perspective is, if it was really working, Nigeria would be different. We wouldn't have the many challenges that we do. But it is working. It's just slow, not as quickly as we wanted, but it's happening. It's advocacy that got you Not Too Young to Run, where the age limit for running for elected office was lowered. It's advocacy that got you the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It's advocacy that got you an electoral act that then made provisions for technology or different things around primaries. It's advocacy that pushes candidates to feel that they have to show up for debates in some parts of town. It's advocacy that is pushing for local governments to be accountable for the monies that they collect, because they are accountable to citizens. It's advocacy that, what else am I looking for? That stopped the fact that a woman a wife needed her husband's signature to renew her passport. So the list is endless in the sense of the different things that advocacy, both in terms of just engagement and some things, public interest litigation. It's advocacy that got us a Freedom of Information Act, which allows citizens to request for information, including if private companies are paid by government. You can actually ask a private company to provide data because they were paid by government. Now, Freedom of Information Act, for example, is 11, 12 years old, but are there still government agencies where you write to and they will not listen? Yeah, even though there is a law that says they must listen. So I just use those as examples to say, yes, I can understand citizens being jaded, but advocacy does work. And at the heart of it, advocacy is what a democracy is about. Unlike any other system of government, a monarchy, a dictatorship, a military rule, democracy gives power to citizens because it is by your vote that you empower people to make decisions for you. Therefore, your vote, your voice is powerful, and that's what you do with advocacy. You use it to say, that's not why I elected you into office, or that's not what I want. This is what I want. So it works.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, just speaking to, advocacy and the consciousness that I believe that a lot of Nigerians have now as citizens, right? In those days, it was very tough for us to hear people speak up, right? But social media has done something amazing. Social media has given everybody a voice and has given everybody the opportunity to be able to just bear their mind. And this was what we saw over the weekend, right, with a young girl that called out the president and called out his government for hardship. And of course, she talked about, how, the price of things are just skyrocketing. And you would think that, a government, that understands the challenges and they see the hardship that every Nigerian is going through would have taken this opportunity, right, to kind of like reinforce the fact that, oh, we empathize with you and we're working and these are the things that we're doing. It might be tough now and all of that, but no, what she met was intimidation and all of that. So it then it then goes on to then make me want to ask this question, right? These are things that you do on a day-to-day basis based on different kinds of things that you see. You are forced just by the nature of your job in EIE to just make sure that you speak, to power regarding different kinds of issues. But when we have leaders that are not, thinking like this is a democracy, right? It's almost like shut up. You don't have any right to say anything. How do you then approach advocacy, with those kinds of leaders so that probably maybe we're not speaking how we should speak? Maybe we need to start to learn what advocacy is. I don't know what we need to do, but tell me, because when I saw this, I thought this was a great opportunity for them to actually, say, okay, we feel your pain, we hear you and all of that, but it was just a completely different, turn of events.
Indeed, and I like the way you framed it. You said it was a great opportunity to say, we hear you, we feel your pain. But that's actually if that were true. They don't hear us, they don't feel our pain, so there's no need to tell us they hear us or feel our pain, number one. Number two, to your point, she was summoned by a local government coordinator. She went there this morning and she had citizens show up, lawyers show up to support her. The local government official was nowhere to be found. In a country where they actually cared about citizens, the DG of NYSC should have issued a statement or spoken today. Basically, either clarifying the rule that she broke, say whatever the issue is, say what they're going to do, blah, 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 blah. But again, silence, because there's no duty of care to say that these are our citizens and we do care. Now, and then let me take that back to your question, is how is it that we're speaking? And I don't think it's how we speak. I think it's just government officials who either decide they want to care or they don't. And they choose not to because they often feel that there are no consequences. That either they care or not care, nothing is going to happen to them. They're going to either run for re-election or be re-elected. The perks of their office are complete. They get their salary, everything is complete. So there's no real incentive to do things differently. And I think for me, when we get to a point where citizens begin to vote people out of office for their bad performance, their bad scorecard, it will do a better job of sending a clear message that there are consequences for behaving badly.
Awesome. I like what you said, but I wish it was our votes that actually put these people in office. Because sometimes I wonder whether our term is truly powerful. But you've done EIE for over the years now. I mean, EIE is celebrating 15 years, right? I want you to tell me in all honesty how well we're doing. You understand? First of all, on the side of citizens, how well we're doing. Then on the side of government, are we even like, okay, so maybe we might not be able to crack that wall, but are we even chipping it a little? Like, do we even prick them? Are they even scared of us to say, okay, you know what? My people are, tell us how well we're doing in terms of engaging when it comes to advocacy for the past 15 years, how we started and how far we've come.
What has been consistent over the last 15 years? So from 2010, the Enough is Enough protest, 2012, Occupy Nigeria, 2013, Open NAS, 2014, Bring Back Our Girls. Then there were, I think, a few others in between. I think another major one was NSAS in 2020 and Bad Governance last year. I think what has been consistent in all these protests, from my view, is that whenever there's a strong voice and citizens come together as a voice, government is always worried. Because the truth of the matter is, if everybody that's angry in Nigeria decides to show their anger, government cannot control it. And that's the reason we just don't have enough police people. We don't have enough security forces to shut down the whole country. And that's the truth, and government knows that, number one. Number two, the ease with which protests tend to turn violent is also very quick. And our government is also very aware of that. And that actually affects all of us. And it's something that we need to be mindful of as citizens. Because at the end of the day, as long as we continue to have the numbers of people living below the poverty line that we do, anybody that's better off than they are, in their view, is part of the problem. So when anything happens that triggers that, which is why people who don't support protests talk about it, that's where they're coming from. Because anything can happen that can spark anger and people then begin to destroy property. But again, back to the point, unified voice is always very strong, number one. Number two, we think citizens are beginning to see that enough, even though we don't tell as many stories, but we've seen it in a lot of work that EIE has done, organizations like Budget have done. When, for example, you take time to train citizens on, this is what was put in the budget for your community. You're supposed to get a borehole, you're supposed to get a school. And then they begin to engage, and those things are then delivered. The truth of the matter is there's no magic wand. It takes time for people to understand that they have power. It's not just me telling you that you have power as a citizen. What does that mean? How does this democracy work that allows me or gives me power? Especially in a cultural context that's very respectful of hierarchy. So anybody that has a position or is older than you or has a title, we tend to defer to them just by nature of our culture. And then the second layer that we always add is religion, that almost numbs your mind because you're expecting God to perform miracles. So I would say we've done well in raising awareness. And to your point, social media has also facilitated that because getting information to people is a lot easier. I don't need to know somebody at a TV station. I don't need to pay for airtime on radio or TV or know someone in paper. Anybody with a phone can share information. I can take a video and show what's happening. The lady that you were talking about for NYSC, she started a 30-day rant challenge on her own. It was her rant on day one that started all the chaos that we're talking about. And that just shows you the power. She didn't use radio. She didn't use TV. She didn't use newspaper. None of the traditional platforms of media did she use. She used a TikTok video, and we're talking about it. And that, for me, is the power of social media. That with a tweet, with a video, the whole country can be talking about content that you have provided. And that's incredibly powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. So powerful. But whilst you were talking, right, I picked on two things. When you talked about unity, and you talked about the ease of, protests turning violence, the ease. On Friday, I had, touched on the topic weaponized poverty and weaponized ignorance and how it's impacting us as Nigerians, right? So to your point around the ease on violence, we know that, poverty and ignorance are weapons in the hands of most of our political leaders because they know that it is only if that thing is really thriving that they can manipulate the minds of people to turn, because even though we are fighting for a better livelihood, a better living and all of that, some people within us can still be manipulated to be able to then, use them as tools to become violent and, cause mayhem and all of that. So those things still exist. So now, because we know we've been able to trace the problem to weaponize poverty weaponized ignorance, right? What are the best ways to approach poverty and ignorance in Nigeria? Because I feel like if we keep on attacking, or if we keep on screaming at the top of our lungs for the government to start to intentionally take education seriously, or eradicate poverty, it will be difficult, because that is their weapon, right? So I would really love to know, in all of this advocacy and how we can try to get a better country for ourselves, how do we intentionally, turn that hand, that we're no longer having a lot of people in that bracket of poverty and ignorance? That's one question. The second question would be around unity. We still have a very huge problem of division. For every time something comes up, I spoke about something against a governor shutting down the schools in the north, and the next thing somebody's asking me, what's my business? Who the hell do I think I am? Blah, 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 and all of that. Like, as if I have no right to speak about issues that are happening in the north. So that division will always be there, across religious lines, across ethnic lines, and across, whatever lines, that exist. So how do we intentionally start to reverse some of those things? Because I think, for me, if we're able to trace it down to those kinds of roots, and we tackle it from there, we might really just find the solutions to some of the challenges that we've been facing all this while. So how do we go about that creatively?
You're very right. And I think there's a huge need for organizations that work on economic empowerment, because ultimately, the more people who have economic freedom, the more that they're able to make better choices around who they vote for and how they engage society. I mean, again, let's go back to this NYSC young lady. Her basic rant started from an economic point of view, that she didn't have enough income to basically afford what she considered the basics of life, and was wondering what was government doing about the fact that life was so difficult. And it's not, I mean, she's not lazing around. I'm working. I'm not saying I should, I'm not asking for a handout, but I'm actually working, but I can't afford to live based on my salary, and what are you going to do about it? So organizations that work on economic empowerment are incredibly important, and so that it goes hand in hand. That's number one. Number two, I think religious institutions have a huge role to play. Unfortunately, the brand of Christianity that we practice in a lot of the churches in Nigeria are focused on a prosperity gospel that kind of expects God to do magic and do wonders. And I think if there is an honest conversation around religious, I speak about Christianity more because that's what I know. And that's also very influential in shaping popular culture in the country. And so if churches, I mean, people will hear their pastors a lot more than they will hear their president, their governor, their senator, their House of Rep member, their State House of Assembly member, their local government chairman, and their local government councillor. All 7 of these people, all the things that they will say in 1 year, you will probably hear your pastor say it in a quarter. And so the fact that you have a captive audience, that really churches and pastors need to use that a lot more to help people connect the dots between their prayer points for light and water and bad governance. Their prayer points for visas or promotion at work or whatever, that tying it into how politics is shaping their lives. It's a huge platform to do it. And it's not to say that it's not partisan. Everybody always, and unfortunately, that's part of the problem. Immediately, as you rightly said, I start to criticize the government in power, then I am opposition. And so when people start doing that, just like they told you what right you have, people then tend to be quiet because they don't want anybody coming for them. But I think religious institutions have not only the platform, they also have a responsibility by the very nature of their faith to speak to that, so that we begin to chip away at the ignorance of people not understanding how to connect these dots. And then to your point about unity, it's also, again, education, and it's hard work, because ultimately people are aligning with where they think their bread can be buttered. So somebody is PDP today, they come to APC tomorrow, and PDP is useless. Meanwhile, they had spent 2 months ago saying APC was the worst thing since sliced bread. So when there are no values that shape how you make your decisions, I keep saying that media needs to help us throw this light a lot more, because somebody is APC in the morning, PDP in the afternoon, Labour at night. How that person is someone that you want to trust or trust your life to needs to be questioned, because ultimately it's all just for power, not because you care about me. And so I think, and I'll end this just by saying that one is just understanding that it's a long haul, and we must consistently engage. Maybe we used for at EIA, you wanted to do university level work, but now we're revisiting that and saying, you know what, let's go to secondary schools and start there, because by the time you're getting to university, you're dealing with people with very whose minds are pretty
Set
formed along
mindset,
certain
yeah.
ways. Exactly. So that if we go, I think primary school might be a bit too young for us, but if we could do secondary school and begin to shape how people think, working with churches, working with organizations that currently exist, and infuse civic and political education in their curriculum, so we can expand the frontiers of the knowledge. Radio partnerships, the type of partnership we have with Waze TV, but we just have to constantly be dishing out the information, and dishing out also good parts of the information, that when people use it and they get results, we can see that, look, it works.
Absolutely. All right, on this note, let's go on a very short break. When we come back from that break, of course, we'll shed more light on the conversation, and let's hear EIE's plans for the next years to come. Stay with me. All right, thank you for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we are celebrating EIE's 15 years of raising active citizens and holding leaders accountable. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also call that WhatsApp line. The phone lines to call for regular calls are 07025007749 or 07014242420. Let's hear what you have to say. All right, so as we start to look ahead, right, for EIE and what the vision for 2025 is, it would be nice for you to, share how EIE Nigeria is committed to deepening civic education. You mentioned something around, going back to secondary schools, incorporating political and civic education into the curriculum. So we start to teach young people from a very young age how to become a lot more active as citizens, So, can you just shed more light, how would this happen? In developing some of these training materials, creating this education, will it, what would the partnerships, or would I call the engagement, what would it look like, for people that probably maybe a school watching that might also want to be interested in, this kinds of education? And are we also focused on how do we engage at the ministry level, so the ministries of education, so that they start to intentionally, put these things as part of, learning within school, so it's mandatory?
Now, that will take a lot more work and a lot more politicking than we have the capacity to, i.e. engaging government to make it mandatory and put it in the curriculum. So we've decided to just focus on schools. There are a lot of schools, take Lagos and in major cities or kind of urban areas that have after-school clubs, and it's really just leveraging those. It's not some content that EIE would deliver as EIE, but our work really is to develop the curriculum. What is content that we think a GSS1 student or an SS1 student should know around what it means to live in a democracy, what is their right? So it's almost pre-voting age, so that by the time that they're 18 and can register to vote and engage, or they can join a political party and run for office, they understand the dynamics of the political economy of the country, the sociology of the country, a bit of history of how we've gotten here, and how Nigerian politics is played, so to speak. And at the same time, is also working. So it's not just teaching so that they can vote, but also teaching so they can choose to run for office, understand what that looks like, understand what is required. So that's that in terms of secondary schools. So the two things we're doing is we're curating a list of after-school clubs, organizations that provide after-school clubs, that we can then give them our content to include. And the second bit of it is developing that curriculum. So it's relevant, it's current, it's easy to deliver, it's easy to adapt, and it's fun and engaging as well. So that's that secondary schools. Then for TV stations and radio stations, is some of them will be live shows, like the one we have with Waste TV. Some will be pre-recorded. So 5-minute or 15-minute segments every week that will play, teaching one bit of democracy information, one bit of how to be an active citizen, what it means to occupy your office of the citizen, and beginning to roll that out across the country and across different languages. So English, Pidgin, Yoruba, Hausa, those major languages, so it's also accessible. Then also creating content that are easily shareable. So not everybody has a TikTok account, but a lot, if you have data, you likely have WhatsApp. So also creating content that's a minute, 90 seconds that can be forwarded on WhatsApp, that's also engaging, fun, interesting, but also communicates very clearly. So those are the things that we're looking at as we kind of roll out this year, this, what's the word I'm looking for? This focus on political and civic education. And then the other side of it is ensuring we probably have the largest database of contact information for government officials on shineyoureye.org. So investing some money into ensuring that that is as current as possible. So if you do have the information and you now want to engage, you can get your senator's email address and send them an email or call them with their phone number.
The challenge is not the sending of the email. It's either whether they will reply the mail, or if you call, whether they will pick the call.
But that's the thing, like you said, which is what I said about numbers. Let me take you back to Akpabio, who's currently under fire for the Natasha case. When he insulted her on the floor of the Senate and said this is not a nightclub, he himself came back to apologize because of the volume of calls that he got.
Yeah.
So not only were they calling him, they were calling his wife. They were harassing his children in school. So he himself received sense. And I keep saying this, that look, until we make bad behavior unacceptable, people will continue to behave anyhow. So when you see a politician, you're quite right. If it's just one person that sends an email, I would ignore it. If there's nothing, there's no threat, there's no consequence. But I open my email one day, I have 300 emails saying the same thing. Then my phone, I have to switch off my phone because back-to-back calls, which is why, you know, there's this constant thing around, should we share the numbers of officials? The NYC lady that summoned Ray, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but that summoned her to the local government office, they had shared her number. The woman had to disappear. Her phone was switched off because Nigerians would not let her rest. And that's what I mean about unity in that sense. When we are ready to deal with people, people would know that something has happened. And that's what we need a lot more.
And you must give it to Nigerians in all fairness. Nigerians are one people you are, you know, you are advised not to mess with. Because literally if Nigerians mean your matter, you know, we go all out. Like we will carry camp gas and beans to cook it on top of your matter. Like we are not going anywhere.
No. And that's the tenacity we need when it comes to governance issues. And I know that government officials understand that. And so we just need, because obviously there's one day there's an issue, every day there's a different issue. But the one issue, if we decide to sit on, even NSAS, even as much as government turned rogue at the end, the pressure forced them to disband SARS.
Yes.
Now engagement hasn't continued to, and this is the point you were making. Because the engagement has to continue, the pressure has to continue. So it's not just the protest to get something done. Then after that, then come with the Inspector General of Police's office. What is happening? Where are we? What's
the strategy?
Exactly. Leverage organizations that are working in the space. Leverage the National Human Rights Commission. But that we don't do as well, and we should do more of that.
So let's touch a little bit about what EI is planning to do with the use of AI in governance, you know. advocating for responsible digital practices that combat misinformation and, of course, enhances transparency. How do we plan to take advantage of artificial intelligence, to push some of these things? If a simple, what's it called, transmission of results, we've not been able to achieve that in this country. How do we leverage? How do we push for technology? In some of these advocacies that we plan to roll out.
It's not a strong area for me. Maybe I should get you Benga Sheson to come and talk about it, or Samson Itodo. But I think it is a valid question, because when you have a country where even the government misinforms and disinforms intentionally, it becomes very dangerous. Very dangerous in how people use information, very dangerous in how they create information. And I think the counter to that is beginning to build trusted channels of information. Because ultimately, when all this madness comes, people will know where to go when they want to hear the truth. That doesn't mean they won't still hear the fake ones or be exposed to it. But my own call is always just ensuring that there are platforms that stick to the truth and that we don't waste time calling people out. And I'll use an example. Now, because I can gather 10 people, call a press conference, call myself Coalition of Civil Society Organizations in Nigeria. I've given myself a name. I am not registered with CAC. I have never done anything in my entire life. But I've collected 10 people. We have called media, and media will show up either because of the person calling or because
they're paid to
cover
do
your
so.
transportation.
Yeah.
They're paid, exactly. I even wanted to say it nicely. We will cover your transportation. And then you cover me, say, utter rubbish, like lie, utter. But it's on TV, it's in the newspapers, it's on radio, and that becomes what people are listening to. Now, what duty do media platforms have to verify? So if I invite them to a press conference, must they now go to CAC to check that I'm registered? Do they have a duty to check if I filed my last 5 years report? If we demand that of media, that's a lot of work. Now, on the part of civil society, how do we self-regulate? So maybe there's a website you can go to. So you just type in the name of the organization, and if it's not there, it means they're not legit. So those are the types of things that we need to put in place. So we're also not giving fake news, in a sense, airtime. And so this example that I was giving, some people got themselves together, did a press conference, and then it was published in newspapers. And when I reached out to the newspaper said, look, we get so many of these requests, we are unable because of capacity to keep up. So we also need you guys, when you realize that people are rogue or not true, to quickly alert us and let us know so that we don't give them airtime. So those are the things that will need to happen. There's a lot of conversations. I mean, the Minister of Technology, Bosun Tijani, is trying to do a lot with artificial intelligence. And I think coming with that is also just the guardrails to ensure that people don't abuse it.
Absolutely. Okay, someone says, I want to know too, I think he's speaking to whether advocacy works. He says, is it working? Now says, great work, my friend. Same person, Alore D says, the steadfastness of the entire EIE's staff, supporters and friends is such a beautiful work to observe. I pray for continued grace, passion, will and knowledge. All right, so I think maybe he was trying to say passion. All right, okay, so if we want to start to, bring this conversation to a close, as a way of calling to action, as we always do, every Monday, to try to ensure that we're not just talking, but we are also calling to action. What would EIE like to reaffirm? What would they want to continue to push in the minds of citizens, and how do we start to call citizens to action? What are the steps that we need to intentionally take as citizens, to ensure that, yes, we are also part of the people holding our leaders accountable and we are active in doing so?
I think, to be honest, with the message of the T-shirt I'm wearing that says one person. EIE started 15 years ago because a 24-year-old man wrote an email and mobilized his friends and colleagues that we can't keep quiet. We must respond to what's going on in the country. the president was missing, people were being killed in Jos, there was fuel scarcity, and they wanted to say enough is enough. So the email of one individual became a protest in Lagos and Abuja, became an organization that I've now had the privilege to lead for 14 years. It's one person that's leading IAGA that works on elections, one person that started, not leading, but that started IAGA, that started budget, that's working on budget and tracking government projects. And so the call to action would not be, in a sense, to wait for the Messiah that's going to come and save all of us and sort all our problems out. One person can and does make a difference. Find something in your community that you're passionate about. Is it education? Is it healthcare? You don't have to be the one carrying a placard. You don't have to be the one knocking on doors. But if it's something of interest to you, if you find an organization that's doing something, support them. You can support them with expertise. You can support them as a volunteer. You can support financially. If all you want to do is just be writing checks, write a check to the organization that's doing something you want to do. If you have energy and you're a people person, engage at your local government level. Make sure your gutter is clean. Make sure your street lights are working. And that is obviously not just you, but mobilize people on your streets to just present your case and engage. Look, there's no Messiah coming from anywhere. God is not coming down to save us. But if you believe you deserve better, then you must take that responsibility to do something about it.
Absolutely. And in the bid to, of course, demand and transparency and engage, right, with our leaders, the Shine Your Eye platform, how well is Nigerian or are Nigerians receiving that? Are they intentionally engaging that platform? Because, I mean, I believe that that is a revolutionary platform that can truly change things for Nigerians. Because now, I don't need to rack my head. If I go to that platform, I will find the person I'm looking for within my local government. So, you know, how well are Nigerians, you know, engaging with the Shine Your Eye platform that was created by EIE?
Not as well, but hopefully in May, we will come back with our WhatsApp bot. So instead of going to a website, from your WhatsApp message, if you send your polling unit number, it will come back with people that represent you and their contact information. And once we have that running in May, we will then push that out a lot more. And with all these partnerships we're creating on TV, on radio, as long as we keep reminding people that it exists, and then adding stories, success stories of people who reached out and got results. And we do have them. Our National Assembly members, some of them are quite useless, as we've seen, but there are some who do respond. And we've seen examples of people reaching out to their elected representatives and getting results. So we need to balance the uselessness with the few that are actually useful and respond to their constituents.
On that note, thank you.
You're laughing. Are some of them not useless? They're very useless.
No, see, it was, somebody said, somebody was, what was the word she used though? And they are beginning to, it said terrible.
Should I say it? I think I'm trying. The president is terrible. Ways did not say it. Opeyemi Adamolekun said it. Anybody that's looking to come and look for me. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is terrible. Chasing one good copper girl up and down the place because she said she cannot buy eggs. I would have job. Joblessness is worrying plenty of people, really.
Well, thank you so much. And please keep up the great work. We'll continue to support you as much as we can from us at Ways. We love the partnership because it's something that we believe would truly make a huge impact. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And congratulations again. All right, so EIE Nigeria's 15-year journey is a testament to the power of collective action. While they celebrate past achievements, they also recognize that the work is far from over. Nigeria's future depends on the continued efforts of engaged citizens who demand accountability and uphold democratic values. So together, we all will build a nation where leadership truly serves the people and governance is driven by transparency, integrity, and active civic participation. So thank you again to all those that joined the conversation.